Hey everyone, Kian here. I hope you're doing well. I'm just making this quick video to clear up some confusion and misconceptions regarding EOLR and EOLRb, which are some popular um, modern and advanced techniques for solving the last six edges in the root method. So I'll start out by defining EOLR and EOLRb. So EOLR is a modern advanced technique in which we try to orient the last six edges at the same time as placing the ULUR edges on the bottom. And the benefit of this is that after you do your EOLR, all you have to do to solve the ULUR edges is adjust the top and do M2. On the other hand, EOLR-b is a very similar technique where at the same time as orienting all your last six edges, you also directly solve ULUR into their respective corners. So the difference is EOLR, we put them on the bottom at the same time as doing EO. EOLR-b, we solve them directly while doing EO at the same time. Now, upon first glance, it seems that EOLR-b is always going to be more efficient than EOLR, and this is actually the other kind of misconception, right? When I made my my tutorial and my algorithm set per se of EOLRs, a lot of people criticized me saying that my solutions were not optimal and that everyone should learn EOLR-b instead. In reality, once you know EOLR, then learning EOLR-b is simply kind of a logical expansion on EOLR, and a lot of EOLR-b cases are going to be the same as the EOLR solution. Now, what I mean by that is, obviously, in an ideal world, you could pick an EO solution that's always going to solve ULUR directly into the corners. However, that's not always possible. Sometimes the EOLRb solution is just going to be placing both on the bottom and then doing the U prime M2 or U2 M2 or whatever it may be. So again, sometimes the optimal EOLRb solution, so I guess the optimal way to do this step as a whole, is the same as the EOLR solution. So EOLRb is kind of, so if you think about it, EOLR is kind of a subset of EOLRb in which you go through a kind of intermediate state where the edges are on bottom before you solve them, and then EOLRb is just like another fraction of that where you just manage to solve them directly. So kind of the intuitive nature of EOLR and EOLRb, as well as the overlap between them, those make up the two misconceptions that I've seen. And with this example, I'll try to show you why. So the reason there's so much overlap between EOLR and EOLRb and kind of dividing them up doesn't make that much sense to me, and the reason they're intuitive is because there's many ways of solving the same EO case, and essentially your job is just to pick the best EO solution to put the ULUR edges in the best position. Again, there's a lot of different ways of solving each EO case, and the whole concept behind EOLR and EOLRb is just picking the best EO solution to optimize the position of ULUR after EO. In EOLR, you just optimize them to be on the bottom. EOLRb, you optimize them to be on top, solved in the top, opposite each other in the right corners. And if you understand the base concept, then there's not really that big of a distinction between the two, and you should be able to do them quite easily. I'll show you this with this example, right? So this is a EOLR case, which we call 2, 0. So the 2 means there's two bad edges on top, the O means the two bad edges are opposite to each other, and 0 means that there's 0 bad edges on the bottom. And for the specific permutation of the ULUR edges, we call this UB and DB. Essentially, so this would be, the whole case is called 200 UBDB if you go by the naming system I set up in my sheet. And for this type of EO case, the 200, there's 8 different ways of getting to an arrow from this position. You can either do M prime U prime M, you can do M prime UM, you can do M U prime M prime, you can do M U M prime, you can do all of that from the U2 angle. So it's 4 times 2 to get 8. And the U2 angle is different because now the relationship of where this edge is relative to this one is going to be completely different. So if you're a beginner and you have kind of no idea how your EO cases affect your ULUR positions, and you've never really thought about EOLR, EOLRb before, when seeing this case, you might do something like this: M, U prime, M prime to get your arrow. And now the arrow that we have is bad. And by that I mean one's at the tip and one's at the back. This is kind of a yucky situation where you have to do a standard EO solution where you solve the arrow, and then now you have to do more moves to put both EO put both ULUR edges on the bottom, and from here it's more moves to solve them. So if you saw what happened there, we had to do 3 moves to get the arrow, we had to do 3 moves to solve EO, and after all of that, the ULUR edges were in a bad position, and we had to do a whole separate 4B step where we put them both on bottom, and then we solved them. So that would be kind of no EOLR, no EOLRb, just standard EO plus ULUR, very 2 distinct 4A and 4B steps of the root method. Now on the other hand, if you know EOLR, you'll know that, okay, there's multiple ways to solve this EO case, but you'll know that if you do an M here, you'll never be able to get these in a good position. And the key to this is, you know, if you get the case here, what you're supposed to do is do a U2 so that you place the ULUR that's on the top above the other one. So you don't want to do anything from this angle. You want to do a U2 and put it like this. And you don't want to do an M. What you want to do is an M prime. And let's say you decide to do a U and then an M. So now you see we have a good arrow, right? We made the decisions to, you know, move this over there if it wasn't over there, so it's over the other one, and not solve it with an M, but instead solve with an M prime, and then we do UM. Now what's happened is we have a good arrow, since we were able to consider the different EO solutions and pick the best one. We now give ourselves a good arrow where one is in the back and one is on the side of the arrow. And from here, you do M prime, U prime, M, and now you have both on the bottom, and notice that they both got there while you were solving EO. So this solution would be called the EOLR solution. And now all you need to do is U2, M2, and you have your ULUR solved. So, you know, that's still a very good solution. This is what, you know, basic EOLR would teach you. Now, finally, we have what the EOLR-b solution would be to this case. So, in summary again, if you do anything from this angle, or if you start with an M from this angle, you'll get a bad arrow, which is going to cause you to do 2 separate 4A and 4B steps. You'll do EO separately, then you'll deal with the ULUR edges separately. Now, if you do M prime, UM, and place the blues between the blues, you do EOLR because you can place both on the bottom, which is a lot more efficient than the standard solution from before. But again, you place them both on the bottom, and then you have to do a U2 and then solve them. Well, I messed that up. Oh, never mind. I'm back. Okay. Now, lastly, the best way to do this is to do the EOLR-b solution, where from this position where they're above each other, you do M prime, U prime, M, to now place the blue edge between the opposite green corners, right? Before we had them in the blues. Now, if you did that U prime, they're between the greens. And this allows us to do EOLR-b. We have the best arrow where the blue and the green are on the side and the back. And while we solve EO, they end up solved between the respective corners. So hopefully that displayed how EOLR and EOLR-b are both intuitive. All you really need to do is know a bunch of different ways of solving the same EO case and pick the best one depending on the scenario so that you optimize what happens to your ULUR edges. In EOLR, they'll end up on the bottom, and EOLR-b, they'll end up solved. But at the end of the day, the distinction between them isn't that clear, since sometimes you're not going to be able to solve them directly, and you're just going to end up with them on the bottom. So the EOLR-b optimal solution is just the EOLR solution. And just to show you one last example, so all I did here is it's really the same case, right? It's 2A0 with 2O0 with UB and DB. But now you'll see that the relationship with the edges and the corners is different, right? Before, the blue edge was in between corners that it was adjacent to. Now it's in between corners that it's opposite to in color. So now, if we solve it from this angle and do any EO, we'll just do a standard ULUR separate from EO. Whereas if we do it from this angle, it doesn't matter whether we do M prime U prime M or M prime UM, because we're never going to be able to get the blue edge between the green corners. It already is between the green corners. So regardless, there is no EOLR-b to this case, or the EOLR-b is just the same as the EOLR, because you have to do this and you have to place both of them on the bottom first, right? That's the objectively optimal way of solving it. There, the EOLR-b is the EOLR, and they're really the same thing. So at the end of the day, I just don't think it's worth your time trying to figure out whether you're doing EOLR, EOLR-b. Just intuitively learn a bunch of different ways to solve every single EO case and start thinking about how you can pick the right EO case to best influence your ULURs. Finally, I just want to comment on the resources that are available for EOLR. So I think My initial tutorial playlist is still one of the best tools for this. I'll link that in the description. It's a series of videos where I go through every single type of edge orientation case, right? 2 opposite, 2 adjacent, 4 on top, 2, 2, 2, 2 like this, 1, 1, 1, 1 like that. I go through all those different cases and show you different ways of solving the EO, and I give quite a few examples of EOLR cases with the ULURs all over the cube. Now, the purpose of that playlist is not to be kind of a comprehensive be-all, end-all guide to every EOLR case. It's more kind of a framework for you to be able to understand what goes into the thinking behind EOLR, and I think that once you watch that and start practicing on your own, you'll be in really good position to start implementing this in your solves. There's also a Google document to go with it where it's just kind of all the cases written down that are, the most simple and relevant and introduce you to the most kind of different concepts within EOLR. And if you just go through those one time, all of them kind of like CFOP solvers go through F2L cases. They don't try to memorize everything, but if you just see the solution worked out, you'll be able to remember the concept and apply it to the different cases. The next resource I want to talk about is the EOLR-b trainer, which is essentially a virtual cube where you just do enter and then it gives you an EOLR-b scramble. And the benefit of this is that once you kind of have the basics down, you can just use this online scramble trainer to kind of test how efficient your solutions are. Let's say you've learned EOLR and you want to see how good you are at it, or just get a lot of quick practice at that specific step without having to do a whole solve. This is a great way to do it, and it can rapidly increase your skill with it. There's also the Onion Honey trainer where it gives you scrambles and a virtual cube as well. So it's kind of a similar tool. And, kind of my suggestion is, watch my playlist for the EOLR tutorial, go through the document that's linked in my playlist for all the cases or all the relevant cases that are just easy and quick to learn, go through the solutions one time, get familiar with how they work, and then just go over to one of the online EOLR trainers and just spam a ton of EOLR only solves, getting used to just picking the best EO case to optimize what happens to ULUR. And that's pretty much it for this video. Other than that, the last RU resource I want to refer you guys to is the kind of mega document of RU resources. It's just a Google Doc with links to a bunch of different RU resources for every single step. And yeah, it's also got the invite link to the RU Method Speed Solvers Discord page where a lot of cubers using the RU method interact. And I think that's it. Hopefully you guys found this explanation useful. Hopefully you now understand why EOLR and EOLRb aren't algorithmic and that they're just entirely intuitive, and why they're kind of the same thing, and really it just comes down to picking the best EO solution to optimize what happens to ULUR. Thanks for watching. Hopefully this was useful, and I'll see you next time.